Welcome back. In just a moment, the press preview, our look at what's in the morning's newspapers. But first, let's take you through the top stories. And the Prime Minister has refused to confirm if she knew about a Trident missile that malfunctioned off the coast of Florida in June, just weeks before a crucial Commons vote on whether to renew the system. The White House says it's in the early stages of talks to fulfill President Trump's pledge to move the US Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. A police officer has been shot in a drive-by attack at a petrol station in Belfast. It's the first shooting of its kind in Northern Ireland for 8 years. Hello again, you're watching the press preview on Sky News. Joining me this evening is journalist and talk radio presenter Julia Hartley-Brewer and Daily Mirror columnist Susie Boniface. Well, that time now to take you through the stories on tomorrow's front pages, starting with The Eye. The Prime Minister has written in The Eye about her plan to reboot British industry. Theresa May says she wants to break down barriers to success. The Guardian reports on accusations that the Prime Minister covered up the failure of a Trident missile test. The FT says Trump has set the tone of his presidency with an attack on dishonest media. May's trade deal will open door to US jobs, is the Telegraph's take on the Prime Minister's talks with Donald Trump. The Express claims 1 million migrants will rush into Britain before the country exits the EU. The Mail has a similar headline. It warns terrorists are on a fast train to Britain. The Metro focuses on Theresa May's upcoming visit to the White House. Its deadline says, "I'm no pussycat." While the Star leads with the celebrities who turned out yesterday to criticise President Trump. Well, with me, as I've said, Julia Hartley-Brewer and Fleet Street Fox, Susie Boniface. Welcome to you both. We're kicking off with the Times, having a look at that there and featuring
the
on
Times, yes.
Yes, the Financial Times.
But it is absolutely fascinating. We're just a few days into this presidency and it's all about attacks on the media, and I'm not entirely convinced by how long Donald Trump and his administration think that is going to fly instead of actually doing stuff. I think that the attacking the media thing, he's entitled to do it. We're big enough and ugly enough to stand up for ourselves, and we can handle it. And if there are things that we're doing that need to be attacked, and that fair enough.
The main thing at the minute is they're disputing the figures, the number of people that turned up for the inauguration.
There are alternative facts, according to this delightful lady, Kellyanne Conway,
which is something other than what you saw with your eyes and heard with your ears.
Yes.
An entirely alternative fact that's imaginary.
Alternative fact.
And the silent majority turned out to Donald Trump's inauguration in mega billions, and they're just also invisible majority and nobody could see them. And despite the fact that it rained quite hard on a man while everyone was watching him with a lot of cameras, the sun was definitely shining. And that God arranged it that way. And if you don't think that, then you're obviously not a believer. It's quite astonishing. But what the media is doing wrong here is to say that, oh, they're having attacks on the media and blah, blah, blah. The general public don't give a toss about that at all. What we should be reporting is Donald Trump is attacking truth, facts, obvious stuff, saying, you know, black is white.
About us.
It's not about the media. And that he, you know, that the very first press conference where his spokesman is supposed to be presenting their policies for the next few years and talking about things and answering questions, he lasted for 5 minutes, involved quite an aggressive rant, and he refused to take any questions at all. We shouldn't be going, oh, he's attacking us. To be honest, part of that is the Washington press corps. They can be a little bit sensitive and a little bit prima donna-y about things. But it really shouldn't be Donald Trump versus media, because people don't care. People do care about President of the United States telling barefaced lies, which is what he's doing.
And his White House press secretary. But again, it's really interesting because so long he's got away with telling lies. And they said he's quite right. The media is largely, the mainstream media is largely against Donald Trump, and there may be issues there that need to be tackled about groupthink in the media. I'm one of them who's opposed to him.
You can't dispute reality, though.
No, you can't. It turns out you can. And bearing in mind that that's exactly what he did throughout the campaign, and people still voted for him, despite all the evidence to the contrary, and the fact that most people aren't getting their news from the FT. They're getting their their news from Facebook, and they don't know what's true and what's not true. They don't care whether something's been verified or not. But there does come a point when what they've been saying and whether they've been telling lies or just making stuff up with their alternative facts doesn't really matter. Legally, it might matter morally, it might matter to a campaign, but it doesn't matter legally. When you're doing it from the White House, when you're doing it from the Oval Office or from the White House press room, it does start having legal ramifications, and I don't think they've quite got to grips with that.
Constitutional ramifications.
Yeah, well, exactly.
As well. They're saying here that we're going to have a rethink our relationship with the media if you don't report what we want you to report. That is directly contravening, I think it's the Second Amendment, the right to freedom of speech and expression. First Amendment, sorry. Not American, I don't know how it works over there. But it's basically telling the press that they can't do what the press should be doing. And that if he's attacking the Constitution, I mean, it's not 36 hours ago, he swore to uphold the Constitution in its entirety.
Yes.
Impeached within 6 months is my best guess, but there we are.
But, I mean, if you've got a press secretary that is not taking any questions from the press, he's sort of more or less made himself redundant before starting.
Berating them for not telling lies.
Yeah.
You're in very strange territory. But we are in strange territory.
And you've got a press secretary whose job it is to explain what the president is doing, communicate with the media, and he himself, as you say, isn't talking to the press. So Kellyanne Conway, another spokesman, gets sent out to explain what the press secretary said, who's explaining what the president said, which nobody understands, all three of them. It's madness, and we're in this very strange new
again, if we're
Trump
having a
planet.
debate about how many people did or did not turn out to an inauguration, and again, the funny thing is, again, if they were clever about this, they could have actually said, our voters don't live in Washington, they don't live in the Capitol. They're working hard. They can't take a day off. Now, if they'd done that, that would have been quite clever. It's raining, it's cold, people have got jobs, they can't afford. That's why they voted for Donald Trump. That would have been clever. But to just pretend those people were there when they weren't
It could easily have just said 63 million people voted. That's it. Next. This is what we're doing. Day one. This is day two. This is day three. Which just goes to show you, actually, that the worrying thing about it is that despite you might think about Trump and how sane or how buffoonish he may be, you did kind of hope that the people around him knew what they were doing, knew how politics worked, had a plan, and were vaguely intelligent and could shepherd him in roughly the right direction. It now appears the people around him are as bonkers as Trump is.
Or do you think he's surrounded himself with sycophants, really?
Yeah, because that's what he's done as a billionaire. That's what he's done in his business. That he's surrounded by people who will support him because Trump is going to keep them all in work, and that's what he's done. Most politicians don't get to be president of the United States by surrounding themselves with sycophants. They surround themselves with advisors and policy specialists and experts. Doesn't want experts.
Most very clever people actually deliberately have people around them who'll tell them the truth, even when they don't think they'll like it.
Yeah. Which makes it all the more interesting how he will deal with Congress, because that's when he will have some people perhaps saying no.
Yes, and particularly over issues like protectionism. A lot of, it's quite interesting, the two big things he's promised, the protectionism, America First, and this idea of like this massive infrastructure build. The Republicans in Congress, they're free traders and they're small government. They don't want money spent. So it's going to be fascinating watching those two battles.
It will be. It will be. Many more stories to come out of America, I predict. Let's move on. Well, staying with Trump, actually, President Trump, we're going to have a look at the Metro and his relationship with the UK and Theresa May, who's now put forward her visit.
Mrs May goes to Washington
this week.
I have to say, what an extraordinary picture of Mrs May they have chosen.
Not very flattering.
I think we can safely say the Metro picture editor's not a fan of this government. But it's interesting actually that she is going to be meeting Donald Trump. I cannot believe that Donald Trump is a man that she likes or admires.
I don't think they're going to get on.
And I don't think he'll see the point of her because he only thinks women are good for one thing. So.
Well, he's already said that she's going to be his
Maggie and Ronnie, but Maggie and Ronnie got on. There was a Hollywood heartthrob who is not Donald Trump, and there was a qualified chemist with a series of demonstrable achievements, which is not quite Theresa May either.
Oh, for goodness
not quite the same. Maggie's arguably been a little more decisive than Theresa up till now. But the fact is that they're going to be chalk and cheese. She's a girl guide. He's a repeated sexual offender. There's not going to be much meeting of minds there, but he does have to take us into some consideration. We are each other's biggest markets, the US and the UK, and there are 1 million of our citizens working in one another's countries for one another's companies. So there is a big thing there, and it is actually bigger than the two of them. So I can understand why she has to go. But when she's asked about his misogyny and his attacks on women and so on and so forth, and she's asked what she's going to do about it, she says, well, he's already apologised for that one comment, and when I sit down, the biggest statement will be that I'm there there as a female Prime Minister discussing things with him as an equal.
That's a fair comment.
It's a statement to the rest of the world. It's not a statement
Well, no,
to
but
him.
you're not going to change his mind. I mean, the point is, I wouldn't have voted for him, you wouldn't have voted for him, but at the end of the day, he was voted for. It wasn't our election. The Americans chose this guy, as repulsive as I personally find him. But there we are. That's who we have to deal with. Look, when we've been lowering flags and the death of a Saudi king, for God's sake, some of the people we do dealings with, you know, in some other countries, even the Chinese president, the fact that we quite deliberately we arrest demonstrators demonstrating against a totalitarian Chinese regime, for goodness sake, this is nothing. This guy is nothing compared to those totalitarian tyrants. They are murderous dictators. He's a democratically elected president. He wouldn't have been mine, but he nevertheless is.
But
We should be rolling out the red carpet for him now.
The copy and the headlines that have been saying, you know, she's cozying up to him. Why does she need to rush over there so quickly?
This is absolutely brilliant. She's going to meet him this week. She'll be the first major national leader to meet him. This is great
Apart
stuff.
from the
Angela
Prime Minister
Merkel,
of Japan, who's
who
already met him
happened to be in New York that day. Angela Merkel can't even get a date in the diary. Now, bearing him, but Nigel Farage, she couldn't go and meet him before he was president. No. That's not. We should be rolling out the red carpet. If he wants to go and play golf on Balmoral, stay with the Queen, then that is what he shall do. That's the point of the royals. They're being paid. We keep them in the fancy palaces, so they have to do stuff like this.
We've got to talk to him. It's America, it's a big market for us and so on and so forth, and it's necessary to do. And she is meeting a lot of the senior Republicans while she's there before she meets Trump, which is going to be the people who actually sort out the trade deal. That's the important thing. That's fair enough. But sucking up to him, actually giving him a big kiss on his wrinkly old man's behind, is not what...
Image.
I really don't think she'll be doing that.
No, but she's doing that on Our Nations. If she's seen, and I'm sure he is going to try to present it that way, if she is seen by the world to suck up to a man who is definitely a demagogue and who may well, in the next 6 months, start a race war, or in the next 4 years cause all kinds of other problems. I mean, lots of people generally think it's going to go badly. If we become too associated with him, that's not going to look very good for Britain in the eyes of history.
Well, she has been clear in saying that if she does disagree with him, she will not be frightened to say so, and she will stand her ground.
I very much doubt he's going to try to grab her, though, is he?
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch, and I have to say, I can't wait to see the whole demeanour of the body language. It's going to be as uncomfortable, I think, as Michelle Obama on inauguration day. But,
or Melania when she has to dance with him.
You have to do what you have to do. That's part of her job. It's part of the Queen's job, and it's all going to happen, and it should happen, because if we can use this as leverage against the EU when it comes to trade deals, this is what we have to do.
But we can't make any deals with him until after Brexit. Not even Article 50.
We can't sign a deal.
We can't negotiate.
Preliminary talks.
Yeah.
Perhaps is how we should describe it. I'm sure he'll be on his very best behaviour. But staying with Theresa May, let's talk about this story in The Guardian, on the front page of The Guardian. This is the Trident row. She's not been that forthcoming in what she knew, when she knew.
I thought Theresa May's interview on Andrew Marsh show this morning was an absolute car crash. Asked 4 times, she failed to answer whether she knew or did not know. Basically, the story comes back to the Sunday Times splash Sunday morning. Basically, there was this Trident missile test. There have only been 5 since the year 2000. There hadn't been one for a number of years. And it went horribly wrong. It diverted off to the Florida coast instead of off to near the West African coast. And it cost £17 million. And they kept it quiet. Now, normally they publicise, and they didn't. This was just a few weeks. This happened at a Cameron's premiership. A few weeks later, she took over, and then they had this big vote, her first big speech in the House of Commons, asking MPs to back, spending 40 billion quid to renew Trident, but didn't release this information. It's really, really simple. Did she know at the time and did not disclose this to MPs, in which case, big question marks, or did she not know, in which case, why did not the Defence Secretary, Michael Fallon, or the Chief of Defence Staff tell her? Big question marks again. Well, she's not going to get away with this. You need to give an answer. But the notion that, well, you can't tell everyone that our nuclear missile doesn't work properly. Russia and China will know perfectly well that nuclear missile went off.
They were
watching it. The only people who don't know are the British people who are paying for the damn thing.
Number one, David Cameron was Prime Minister at the time that this happened, so there's no reason that Theresa May, who was Home Secretary, would have been told what had happened with a Trident missile.
She would have been in the security briefing.
She would have been in security.
Susie, the only thing on that is if she didn't know, why not just say, I didn't know?
Exactly, that's the trouble. She wouldn't have known at the time. No. When she became Prime Minister, it should really have been told to her. And certainly when she was going to the vote to Trident in the House of Commons, she should have asked someone or been told by someone this is the current situation. It's hardly surprising that a missile system, which is as old as it is, may have gone slightly wrong. The missiles do get rebuilt, but the old ones tend to get taken away, refurbished at Aldermaston and then go back out again. So it's entirely possible that a bit of wire goes in the wrong way sometimes.
But if it's not a big deal, we should have known about it.
It wasn't armed, so, you know, it went off the wrong way. There's probably a very good reason for that, involving some human error and something, you know, getting plugged in the wrong way. There's no reason that she couldn't have said, well, this is why we need to renew our defence system. This is why we have to do this. The fact that if she had known, there is no harm at all in her saying to Andrew Marr, well, of course I knew, I'm the blasted Prime Minister. And if she didn't know, that would look really bad. And that's the only reason that you wouldn't answer the question, is because you didn't actually know.
I think she did know. I think she did know.
Not answering makes it even worse.
Yeah. Julia and Susie, do stay with us. We are going to take a break. Coming up, why burnt toast could cause cancer. Welcome back, still with us, taking a look at tomorrow's newspapers. Julia Hartley-Brewer and Susie Boniface. And we're going to have a look at the Financial Times now. No, the Times. We're looking at page 2 of the Times. This is Lord Ashcroft and Tory donations to be resumed.
Michael Ashcroft's one of those figures that people might have heard about but aren't quite sure what his significance may be. He was someone who was very friendly with David Cameron. Then he was behind that book involving Piggate, which Google. Not going to discuss it now.
It's a family show.
Not allowed. And now he hasn't been. He was a big donor to the Tories, and now he's of late he fell out of David Cameron, obviously, hence the Piggate thing, and therefore he stopped these donations. Now he's now talking about going back to paying $50,000 a year to be a member of the Leaders Club, which gives you some access to the top politicians and be able to go to dinners with the Prime Minister and so on and so forth. Now, the fascinating thing about this is that in 2010, Lord Ashcroft arguably swung the general election towards the Tories, and the way he did it was not by making big payments into the main party coffers. He went to local constituencies around the country and he gave them seed money, if you like, a few thousand here and a few thousand there. They used it for he did lots of really in-depth surveys in local constituencies, worked out the ones you had to win in order to get into Westminster, and gave the ones in the right places, targeted it properly, so that a few thousand used properly managed to get more Tory MPs, and therefore 2010 we had the coalition. The rest is history. If he's now back in the fold and using his massive databases and his chequebook potentially for the Tories, that is a massive victory for Theresa, and it could potentially mean that the next general election, whenever she calls it, whether it's earlier or later, he's got a lot of weight behind him.
He never really defected from the Tories. He was just his main aim in life for quite a long time was getting David Cameron out of power. And once that was done, tick, job done. But my main issue, and I know Lord Ashcroft, it was a fabulous 70th birthday party, don't you know? I went along as a journo, I'd like to point out, as did lots of other journos, including shadow members of the shadow cabinet as well. But genuinely, I just don't think anyone should be allowed to give that much money to any political party, whatever their political hue. No. £5,000 limit, any company, any individual. We've got to take money out of politics. If you want to know what's going wrong in our politics, it's what we've inherited from the States, and everything's going wrong in the States. Even though Trump won, by the way, more spending a fraction of what Hillary did, at the end of the day, we need to take the money out of our politics.
Well, if you have such large donations, it's an investment, isn't it? It's not
simple
donation.
They did say the reason he fell out with Cameron was because he didn't get a knighthood after all the money he put in.
No, he didn't get. No, it was a particular job. It was a
particular job that he wanted. That was it. Sorry. But what you should be doing, rather than having £50,000 to go and get invitations to dinners, drinks, receptions, election result events with senior party figures, is if the Conservative Party really wanted to reinvent itself and stop being the nasty party that Theresa May told us about years ago, is to have just an average lottery where normal voters can go and meet senior party figures.
No, normal voters get to do that to constituencies every time. The whole point is nobody should be getting access because they're rich.
No.
And if they're giving money,
if a party
you get access.
is going to represent the people, if they had just a lottery to be able to pull the average occasional
and the sums that we're talking about
here, they're
representing the people who pay £50,000.
The sums we're talking about exclude a lot of people, and that really is the main point. A lot of people exclude. Just time for. We're going to move on to the front page.
I know. But it's not
just time for the burnt toast. Tell us about the burnt toast.
This is hilarious. Well, I was going to say this, but yet again, another list of things that we're not supposed to eat. Well done toast has been added to the list, along with roast potatoes and chips. Or French fries.
On the
as
basis-
Tabs
Brown
does.
your toast. Toast is meant to be
On the
brown.
basis of no study,
Otherwise it's not toast.
just they've decided that there's certain chemicals in when you cook certain grains and products and vegetables, and therefore these chemicals, if you have too much of them, can give you cancer. If you have too much of anything, it can give you cancer.
Well,
too much water can kill you.
Well,
They're
it's
not
gonna
telling
give
you to
cancer.
stop
No,
drinking
there's
water.
perfectly good evidence that some of these things are not good for you, but it's just
but
a
you've got to
long
eat
list
huge
of things we
amounts.
now can't eat.
I'm not going to stop eating crispy potatoes just because the Food Standards Agency, on the basis of no science
I'm
at
not
all,
going to
is
stop
saying you
browning
should.
toast.
No.
I think once
It isn't
you're
toast.
giving up roast potatoes, life's just not worth living anyway.
Julia and Susie, thank you very
It's
much.
all that
We'll
makes
see you
Trump bearable.
a little bit later. Still ahead, much more to come.